Hello, and welcome to episode 20 of the His and Her Life Hacks podcast. I'm Larry.
And I'm Dawn.
And it's been quite a while since we did one of these.
Yeah.
Life kind of took over, but we are really excited to be back and doing this with you guys.
It was supposed to just be a summer break, but we extended that a little bit.
Into the fall, yeah. But we're back and eager to get going here. So we have a great topic today.
We do. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about a very popular topic, something that's finally getting the recognition and all the headlines that it deserves. And the topic is perimenopause and menopause. So we're going to make it fun as far as like his and her perspective. Like men actually have a piece in it as well. So
yes, we do. So we're going to talk a lot about your journey. It's really been the last couple of years, but it's also been almost like a lifelong journey in some of the ways it's kind of led up to this. And we're also going to mix in data from Mary Claire Haver, Dr. Mary Claire Haver,
yeah,
who's an OBGYN, but also a world-renowned expert on menopause. And so we got some really interesting data from her to offer up as part of this. And I think one of the first things that's fascinating that we learned from her is that, for as much as this has gotten more attention lately over the last, say, couple of years, there was a study in 2023, so last year from the FDA that said, 85% of women will talk about symptoms to their doctor, and yet only 10% will leave that doctor's office with being on hormone replacement therapy, right? Which is one of the main treatments for this, or the main treatment for this. So,
which would be a proper diagnosis. And so, because there are 70 symptoms that they claim.
And considering that she said 1.2 billion women are in the perimenopause through postmenopause state, and 47 million, I think, new ones come into this every year, there's a lot of people who are still wondering and searching and suffering through this without really giving an adequate treatment for it. So hopefully what you're going to talk about and the journey you've been on and some of the things we'll talk about on this podcast will help those who are struggling through this. And again, for the men, I know Dawn already mentioned, but you're going to get some insights as well that how you can support your wife, your fiance, your partner in this as they're experiencing things that they've never experienced before, whether it's physical, emotional, and so forth. So,
yeah. And first, full disclaimer, obviously I'm not a doctor. I am not an expert. I am just sharing from my own personal experience and research. I mean, I tend to be that kind of person that when something's going wrong with my health or me or someone I love, I dive in to get as much research as I can. And I am huge on being your own advocate. This is our body or your child's body. Like, we know ourselves better than, I'm not saying doctors don't know what they're doing. I'm just saying we are the best advocate for what's going on within us. So,
well, you'll talk about a lot of these details, but one of the things that's been fascinating for me to observe you and watch you go through this is it's really been a trial and error approach in combination with your doctor, with your pharmacist, and you have a fantastic pharmacist, which we'll talk about, but just the treatment and the form of the treatment and the ratio of the treatment and when you take it time of day has really been back and forth. And this is where you're saying you have to be an advocate for yourself, because if things aren't working out, you have to go back and say, hey, here's what I'm experiencing. Let's try a different path. And of course, under the guidance of the doctor or the pharmacist, taking that approach. But I think that's been that's actually done wonders for, you and kind of working through this in a really positive way.
Yeah, I felt like a scientist until I found the right calculation or whatever. So first off, I would say find yourself a great team. I have a fantastic doctor. I'm going to give her a shout out, Dr. Christine Meyer in practice. And I say that because I see Amy O'Grady, who's a fantastic nurse practitioner. She has been amazing for me on multiple different situations. And the number one thing I would say across the board is they are all great listeners. They are advocates for you, right? So they're not just getting out the prescription pad and saying, no, according to the books or the guidelines, this is what you're going through. They really take the time, all of the practitioners do, to sit and listen to you. So that was really the start of my journey. along with a fantastic pharmacy who I'm going to call out. It's Lionville Natural Pharmacy. I say, that's their name, Natural Pharmacy. But a natural pharmacy is so important because while they do fill medications and do the medicine side, they also do the homeopathic or naturopathic side. And they really know their stuff. And honestly, I call my pharmacy before I call my doctor. And or both of my pharmacists, actually, I call the one at Giant as well, but because they know medicine, they know how it chemically works in your body, and doctors know what medicines work for certain things. But I don't know if a lot of people know to do that, but I just started doing it when my kids were little and when I needed help, and it's just always worked.
You definitely have them on speed dial.
I do, and they know me. I've been there for now 28 years, so as old as my second child.
Yeah.
So that was the start of my journey. So after I had my youngest daughter, Sierra, 28 years ago, I experienced like rapid decline in everything, and it was hormone driven. And of course, that's normal after you have a baby. Your hormones go all crazy out of whack and stuff. And certain things are normal. Also, the what do you call it after you have a baby? I just lost train of thought. That's brain fog. Postpartum. Yes, excuse me. So, I mean, that wasn't really talked about a lot then either, but so maybe I had a little bit of that. I don't know what I had.
What were your symptoms? You said a decline in everything.
Yeah,
so at that time, back in your 20s, what were the symptoms?
They were, and so I was 26 years old at this time. My symptoms were, I was breaking out all of a sudden, which was not like me, like cystic acne. And it was all over, like my back, my chest, my face. My moods were up and down. So, okay, that could have been just had a baby moods, but I wasn't sleeping. I was extra emotional. So I just didn't feel right in my skin. And I knew the difference between being pregnant and feeling that way. And I just had this inner knowing that something was wrong. So I went to Lionville Pharmacy, and the first thing they did after listening to me was ask me they did a saliva test right there. And the saliva test rapid result revealed that I was low in magnesium as well as progesterone, which is a natural needed hormone. And sure, it could be disrupted after pregnancy or whatever, but I desperately needed it because it was converting into testosterone, the male hormone, which at the time, I'm 26 years old, I don't need more of that. And that is why I was having the breakouts and all the other symptoms. So the simple fix for that would be to add progesterone back into my body because my body clearly wasn't producing that. And so we didn't know if this was going to be a temporary thing or just a forever thing, but we just gave my body what I needed and what I was losing. And of course, I had to take this suggestion and prescription, recommendation to my doctor. And at the time, it was my OBGYN. And I just told her everything, and she knew of Lionville Pharmacy and fully trusted them. And so literally, like, my pharmacist diagnosed me and my doctor supported me, my OBGYN. And so they agreed and said, yep, let's start her at the lowest dose. And so just to kind of put doses out there, I was on 25 milligrams twice a day initially, pill form. And I did that for about a week and a half, and my symptoms, I was still breaking out. It was just, I was not feeling right on that. So we reduced it to 1 pill a day. And as soon as we reduced it, within 2 weeks after that, I was like a new person, mentally, emotionally. My acne was clearing up, like everything. I just felt good again. I felt normal in my skin again. So I knew that was working. So I stayed on 25 milligrams, so 1 pill a day, for 27 years. And it has been wonderful. Oh, also another symptom was my period was not regular. Again, that could be after having a baby normal, but it was just like I was heavy bleeding. I was extra cramping. So those were also other symptoms I had.
And they were not regulated.
So then once I started progesterone, it regulated my period, and I started on a 25-day cycle. Just like if you were on birth control, it's a similar concept, but it's all natural. So I wasn't on that synthetic.
So that was back in your 20s, and then you went 20 some years on kind of cruise control with that,
It was great. Right? Like my body just felt good. Yeah.
And what we know is that the average age of menopause is 51. And what I understand is, you can have perimenopause, so the kind of the beginning of some of those symptoms 7 to 10 years prior. So, that's the average. So people can start to experience these symptoms as early as in the mid 30s, right? But you, on the other hand, kind of didn't experience it until really into your 50s.
Yeah, I'm 54, and I just started going through mild menopause or perimenopause symptoms this year. And I don't even know if it started last year. I would say definitely this year, because that's when I started diving into like what it was definitely this year, because I was trying to figure out what was going on. My symptoms this year were again mild, but I knew it wasn't normal. I was having disruptive sleep, insomnia, I guess. Like I was just waking up and not able to go to sleep. Unlike my usual, I would pass out and stay asleep for 8 hours. I was waking up hot. I wasn't sweating profusely like my friends have told me they have. I just was waking up hot. What other symptoms was I having? Oh, constant urinary infections. That was unlike me. And, I work out and stay in my workout clothes. So they say, oh, that could cause it. But I've been doing that for like 20 years. So, like, those were the top things that were really out of the ordinary for me. So, I had read up on it, and I had read and been told, oh, perimenopause causes these. So I just became a research addict. And then I went to my doctor and I said, hey, I went to actually both, because I had an appointment with my OB and my doctor. And I said, these are my symptoms. I want to get ahead of this perimenopause thing. I don't know if I'm going through it or not, because I still get a period. I still get it every month, still to this day. I may be late, but I still get it. So again, it could be the help of the progesterone regulating me still. But I was told, you're still going to go through perimenopause while you're on that. So I spoke to my doctor and my OB, and I said, look, I want to get ahead of this. And they were both advocates for it. They were like, okay, like, let's just wait until you actually have symptoms, though. I don't want to just give it to you. And I said, all right, well, let's give this another month or so, if that. I want to see if these are symptoms, or is this just me? I'm stressed out and this is happening. So I think I lasted another 2 weeks maybe. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to be exhausted. I want to make sure I want to get on top of this. So again, they said, okay, let's start with a low dose. And I think I'm at like 5 milligrams. Like, it's super low. I could have that messed up, but the lowest I could. So I started on estrogen cream. So I rub it on my wrist. And so those symptoms, I was on that for like 2 weeks, and the symptoms of the urinary infection were gone. Like, I wasn't having those anymore. But my sleep was still like iffy. It was a little better, but not great. Went back to Lionville Pharmacy, told him, and he was like, progesterone is actually what's responsible for the sleep. So we may need to finally increase your progesterone. You've been on 25 milligrams. Most women your age are at 200 milligrams at this point. So I was like, oh, okay, well, let's just double it then. That was my original dose. So we did. Well, I was on the pill form. So then I doubled it. I slept. That worked like magic. All my symptoms are gone as far as what I was struggling with. Now I had a new onset of symptoms. My boobs, sorry guys, were like when I was pregnant, like hurting, sore, and huge. And my GI issues, all of a sudden I had like heartburn and distended stomach and bloating, like super uncomfortable all day, all night long. And I couldn't stand it any longer. So went back to Lionville Pharmacy and told him that. And he said, oh, well, okay. Taking the pill form has been known to do that, especially when you increase the dose. So what I want to do is put you on cream now, because it's a different way of getting through your body. It's not systemic. It's going right through. I might be saying the words wrong because I'm not clinical, but I think systemic, meaning I'm not taking it, it's not going through all my organs and my liver and everything and impacting and creating that GI issue. When you put it right on the skin, it just goes internal or wherever it needs to go. So we switched to the cream, and now I'm on the right dose for estrogen and progesterone, both cream form. And I'm good. Like, I feel great. Everything is, I feel healthy. I'm still in my cycle and everything.
So that's, and it's been like I said, kind of an amazing observation, amazing journey for you watching you go through it, the trial and error, the support from your doctor, your pharmacist, and so forth, which has been fantastic. But you've also done some other things that they also mentioned. So as you know, as women, particularly women age, there's some things that they need to do for themselves health wise, and it could be around diet, you know, with nutrition. It could be because as you enter perimenopause, right, you start to lose muscle mass, right? So doing strength training and so forth is important. So why don't you talk a little bit too, not just about the HRT piece of this, but also talk about some of the lifestyle changes that you know you didn't necessarily make because you're going through, so you've kind of incorporated those, but could very well be why your symptoms
Are minimal.
you know, were more advanced in age than maybe most people, and the average certainly would have, and they may be less intense or severe than maybe some others. And kind of share a little bit about that because I think that's important as well.
Yeah, and of course, you know, every woman has their own symptoms. So, what's happening with me, it doesn't mean is normal by any means. Yeah, I would just say so. We as women, our bodies, it's almost like we have no control over what's happening when it comes to the hormones. So we have to take control. And, you know, we could be doing everything right and still having symptoms. And that's unfortunate. And that's where the combination of, you know, talk therapy with your team, doing the right things as far as lifestyle works, taking the HRT if that's your choice. But in my case, I'm a huge advocate for working out. And as women age, we need more strength training than anything. And a lot of women at this age, it's kind of the confusion is, oh, I'm gaining weight, so let me get on the treadmill more and do more cardio or less weight training because I don't want to get real muscular, is what some women say. The thing you want to be is strong, right? And you really need to build, because as you were saying, you lose that muscle mass. And that muscle mass, think of it as a protective coating for your bones, right? We need that cushion. You're not going to get that if you're doing extreme levels of cardio. You're going to deplete that. And what we need is to build our muscle, because what muscle we used to be able to build at 20 is takes double the time to build it. I joke, I will go to a class that's all strength training and I'll come out feeling jacked. I may not look it, but I feel it. And by that night, I swear it's gone. I'm like, what happened? I had muscle and now it's gone. So, of course, it doesn't happen that quickly, but it doesn't stick around. So, we have to work at it constantly and do different forms of strength training. Eating, I just did a blood test and I was told that my cholesterol is high, which is crazy to me. I literally eat the most boring diet ever. And then I'm like, well, could it be genetics, you know, hereditary? Could be. But then we just read a study by Dr. Mary Claire that said cholesterol levels can go up for absolutely no reason at all. It just can because it's hormone related. So again, you want to make sure you eat some kind of healthy diet, you know,
high fiber, right?
High
so
fiber,
fruits, vegetables,
yes.
nuts, seeds, you know, avocados.
Yeah, seeds. Like you can incorporate. I put chia seeds in my oatmeal. Oatmeal's good. Avocados are great. And you can Google, you know, what are the best high fiber foods, and then pick what you like. But yes, high protein, but mix it with carbs. We need carbs. You know, if anyone tells you you don't, you definitely do. Make them healthy, obviously. And then fiber and fruits and veggies.
Yeah. So I think there's first of all there's as we talked about, this is while this has gotten a lot more publicity and a lot more attention. There's podcasts, you know, out there as well and other sources of information, a lot more than there were. It's still not hit mainstream in terms of, I think that the statistics she gave us is that, you know, non-pharma research is like $55 billion that's going into all forms
Women's
of health. No, all forms of research everywhere, right? I think women's health was 15 billion of that, but the majority of that was around fertility, helping people get pregnant and staying pregnant and so forth. I think it was $15 million out of 55 billion that's actually being placed into this area of expertise. So it's still, even though there's more attention to it, it still hasn't gotten the mainstream into the mainstream of the funding and the discussions and so forth.
And she said that they spend so much time, energy, and effort in helping a woman get pregnant, right? But when it comes to the woman's system being depleted and not in that phase anymore, it's like dismissed.
Yeah.
So that's why there's no research or anything. They just almost chalk it up to mental health. Women are losing it. They're crazy. They have mental health issues.
Right. Well, and then contrast that with men, right? This what the study from
Yeah,
men
I
is
have a
that
great study here.
from a testosterone
Yep.
perspective, right?
And I'm going to read it because I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So, this again was another study by Dr. Mary Claire Haver. So, men's testosterone levels peak at 19 and then diminish around 35, 40 years old, and then remain stable the rest of their life and never drop to zero like women's. So, that's huge. And then, therefore, they never go through those up and down symptoms or health risks that women do. Health risks, I mean, are all over the map, like anything from cardiovascular health to diabetes to mental health, everything. So, men can easily get HRT, so hormone replacement therapy, in the form of testosterone from their doctor by just simply calling up and saying, I need an appointment, and they come in and they get it. Whereas a woman has to fight for it, and their symptoms are often dismissed to anxiety, depression, mental health, or just chalked up to getting old. Like if you're gaining weight, they're like, you know what, that happens. Oh, and by the way, your cholesterol's high, so you got to fix that. But there's no solutions. So we women need to be our own advocate. We know our body best, and it's better to take a proactive approach versus a reactive approach. And we can do that at the initial onset of symptoms, kind of like I did when I was like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit of symptoms. I want to attack this before it attacks me. And if you're already, in it, say by a couple years or whatever, it's never too late to go to your doctor and say, hey, these symptoms suck. And I need help. Like, I don't want an antidepressant medicine or anxiety medicine. I actually, and maybe need that for different things, but how do we fix these other symptoms?
Yeah, and I think from a male perspective, it's so how do we support you, right? So this is, you've been very vocal, very open about the changes and how you feel and what you're feeling and your different approaches to try to resolve and find the right solution for you. And I think just from a male perspective, right? I mean, Dawn just talked about how easy it is for us if we have something deficient in that area of our own lives, how easy it is for us to go get it. And it's kind of well known and widely discussed. But from a female side, I just think, normalize the conversation, have the conversation, right? And have some empathy around it that, emotionally, physically, mentally, your body is changing, going through changes. And it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It just means you're going through something that's naturally happening and that, we're there to kind of support and understand and whatever we can to kind of participate in that, I think is appropriate and just would benefit the relationship and so forth. And the struggle, right, that you and many like you are going through. So, I would just encourage all the men who are on this conversation to participate in that way. And we talk about a lot in our work life how teaching compassion and empathy to leaders in business, and this is just a way of applying compassion and empathy in your own home and relationship as well. So
yeah, and we could talk about some of those symptoms. So there's apparently 70 per Dr. Mary Claire. So I'm just going to list a few that are the common ones. So hot flashes, every woman understands what that is. Weight gain, even weight shift. What used to be cute and perky is now maybe shifting downward. I don't know. That just seems to happen. Changes in your medical health. Again, we were talking about cholesterol, diabetes, just all over medical health. Your muscle and bone density and pain. So all of a sudden you have arthritis, like all of a sudden I have tendonitis in my thumb and I've probably had it, but now all of a sudden it hurts. I have no idea. Insomnia or sleep issues, and then mental health. So there's a ton more. I think she was talking about teeth and
yes, like a frozen shoulder.
Frozen shoulder. Like there's just a ton. But basically the whole point of that is I think our doctors are so educated, but not enough in this area. And for years, this has been chalked up to just kind of clinical, like, okay, she has a bone issue, let's just say, but is there a deeper root cause? And that's where you really need to find a doctor who's an advocate and say, okay, you're approaching this age, you know what, you're kind of in that bucket where you could be experiencing a multitude of symptoms, and here's what they might be, may not. But, you know, you're not crazy, you're not falling apart, you're not broken everywhere.
Well, I think too, and there's been a discussion too about there was a stigma around HRT for women because there was a study back in the late '90s that the outcome of that study was that there was a 25% increase in the potential to have cancer, whereas the raw numbers were so minuscule that it didn't matter. But it went viral long before there was such a thing as viral. And I think it scared a lot of people from it. And, according to the experts, and obviously we're not the experts in that area, but that study has been walked back many, many times and shown, the safety of this approach. And so, we would encourage you to go have that conversation. And to Dawn's point earlier, if there's resistance or pushback, maybe from the doctor or pharmacist or whatever, be your own advocate and push forward and do some research and come in with some of these statistics. And, ultimately you have to find the person that's going to help you resolve what you need to be resolved in your life medically and for your own health. So,
and just keep pushing. If you're not feeling good, I don't care if I'm being a pain. I really don't. I'm paying for healthcare. I'm going to see my doctor. And if I have to go back every single week to get to the cause of what's going on, I am going to do it, because I am not okay with just them slapping medicine at me and then I have the side effects from that medicine, but it's just putting a Band-Aid on whatever the problems are, and then I'll have new problems. It's not fixing it. So if there is a way we can get to the root cause, at least to have understanding and clarification, then we get to make the choice. Do we want to go on the HRT or not? Some women can't clinically. They have that gene or the cell, again, I don't know enough about it, but it's estrogen dominant that could create breast cancer. So those women would likely be told, no, you're not a candidate. But for a large majority of women, it's safe, but I do know that it has to be paired with progesterone. You can't just have estrogen alone, from what I was told and read. And in my case, I was already on progesterone, so I was a perfect candidate. I didn't have any side effects or reaction from it negatively, and I needed to have that in order to start estrogen, so it just worked out good. But yeah, so, and then the benefits of taking HRT can have a protective effect against your health and conditions, such as what they're mapping back to really mostly all brain issues. So Alzheimer's, insomnia, hot flashes, brain fog, dementia, depression, and then, of course, heart disease and diabetes. So it's interesting because I read a study the other day about women have more onset of Alzheimer's than men. And I sit there and think, well, now that I'm studying all this, of course they do, because they're losing estrogen, which has a big part in that. So, yeah.
Yeah. So again, this is a topic, and we don't need to tell you. I'm sure you're feeling it, not just learning about it or hearing about it. You're actually feeling it physically and mentally and emotionally and so forth. And so, hopefully, this gives you a little bit of encouragement, maybe some insight into some of the things that Dawn went through personally in her journey, as well as then where her research led. And we would encourage you to seek out the advice of people like Dr. Haber in terms of what she provides, as well as others out in the field. And in the end, the biggest thing is it's your health, your life. Be an advocate, be a strong advocate for yourself. And ultimately, our wish is that you seek and find the right,
and for the men, just be supportive and understanding. Yes. I have a girlfriend, dear friend of mine. I won't mention her name, but her husband freezes every single night because she sleeps with the window wide open in the dead of winter. And she has a fan blowing directly on their bed. And he is literally zipped up in like a winter jacket and hats and everything, and he freezes, and God bless him, he doesn't leave and go to another room, but he just supports her in that way and many other ways, and it's beautiful to see. So we women are not crazy. We're not losing our mind. We're not changing. Maybe our bodies are, but we're still deep in there. So
all right. So we appreciate you taking the time and learning about this important topic, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you for listening in to this episode of the His and Her Life Hacks podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. We look forward to having you join us on future episodes. If there is a topic that you would like Dawn and I to discuss, please feel free to contact us at dawn.jacoby@grit2grace.com or larry.ambrose@grit2grace.com. See you on the next one.